Hi, my name is Beth Dennis, and I'm here making this video today to tell my personal story of childhood rape and abuse. I decided to do this as a part of my therapy. The very first memory that I have of the abuse in my family was my grandfather coming over in the middle of the night because my father had beaten up my mother. We could hear the screaming. I shared a room with my little brother because we only had a 3-bedroom house and there were 6 of us. I remember that all the screaming and the yelling and the crashing and I remember my grandfather telling my father that if he didn't leave and if he ever touched my mother again that he would kill him. That was my very first memory. Of course, get a little bigger. I was probably 3 years old. Get a little bigger. My father used to beat us all the time. Sometimes it was a couple times a week. Sometimes it was daily. If one of us did something wrong, all 4 of us got beaten until whoever did it owned up to it. He verbally abused us on a daily basis. From the time I can remember, we were told that we were worthless and no good, and we were never going to be anything, and we were stupid and ignorant. My father was a drug dealer the whole entire time we were growing up. He beat up my mother. He beat us kids. He verbally abused us. He mentally abused us. He emotionally abused us. He was just a full-fledged abuser. I'm sure that the drugs had a lot to do with it. He'd even have people come to our house to deal drugs to, and we would be locked outside. I remember my mother telling him one day that did he think these kids were stupid? Did he think that we didn't know what was going on? I remember my mother telling him this a lot. But when my mother confronted him, he would go into a tirade and call us all names and call my mother names, throw things at her, threaten to beat her, tell her to mind her own business. He would do whatever he wanted. Fast forward a few years. I was at home one day with my brothers, and my uncle came to our house. I was 7 years old. He came to our house. My mom and dad had to go somewhere, so they asked him to watch us. He watched us. Yes, he really watched us. I was playing upstairs in my bedroom. By this time, I had my own bedroom. I was playing in my bedroom with my Barbie dolls, and when he came into my room, most pedophiles groom their victims. He did not do that. He just flat out raped me. Threw me on my bed, climbed on top of me. This is a 20-something-year-old man, very large. I'm very small. Of course, I was 7, but I was smaller than average. And proceeded to rape me. When he was finished, Mr. Sensitive told me to clean myself up. Victims do not tell people because they're ashamed, they're scared. Ultimately, they're afraid no one will believe them. And in reality, that's a lot of truth. When I told my father about it years later, he flat told me that I needed to get over it. A childhood rape, you never get over. And for someone to sit there and tell you to get over it is impossible and horrible for someone to say that to you. Childhood rape, you never get over, especially at 7 years old. As we grow up, my father obviously leaves us. He abandoned us completely. 4 kids. He left with my brothers my mother's brother's wife abandoned us back to when him and my mother first got married. He started cheating on my mother 6 months after they were married. He cheated on her continuously. He had affairs with his cousin's wives, my mother's brother's wife. He had affairs with anyone who would have an affair with them. And he didn't see anything wrong with this. He blamed it on my mother. Of course, that's typical men blaming everything on women. He blamed everything on my mother. If she hadn't accused him, he wouldn't have done it. If she hadn't done this, he wouldn't have done it. My mother made him cheat. This man should have never had any children. He abandoned us. He never paid one dime of child support in the whole time that we were growing up. Never. To this day, he tells people, I paid all my child support. That never happened. But this runs in his family. He has several brothers and sisters, and my two brothers included have had children and never bothered to pay one dime of support for them. Apparently, child molestation runs in their family as well. I don't know where that gene comes from, but it's obvious that they don't see anything wrong with with raping little children and molesting little children. They don't even feel bad about it. It's always the victim's fault. I don't understand. I was told I was enticing to him. What can a 7-year-old do to entice a grown man? It's not the victim's fault. If you're a victim, it's not your fault. You didn't have anything to do with this person's sickness. You just happen to be chosen as a victim. Child abusers, child rapists, child molesters, they have no sense of right and wrong. They have no conscience about what they've done. To this day, my father doesn't have a conscience of the things that he's done. My father didn't molest me or rape me, but his brothers did. 2 of his brothers were rapists and molesters. I'm not the only female in my family that was raped or molested by either one of these men. I just don't name names because they just are like me and they just stay away from these people. I've lost mostly complete contact with my father's side of my family because of the way they are. These people are drug addicts, they're rapists, they're molesters. They can't see anything wrong with what they've done. They cover for each other with their criminal activities. They tell you, you're crazy, you're lying, it's your fault. I've lived with this my entire life. From the time I was 7 till I'm 48 now. It was not a picnic growing up in my home. My mother was a single parent from the time I was 11. My father never paid child support. She struggled very hard to raise 4 kids. My mother had to work in a packing house to support us so that she wouldn't have to go on welfare. Everyone knows the stigmatism of welfare. My father went on to marry this woman that he left my mother and us for. He had another child, and ultimately, at 4 years old, he abandoned my sister as well, never paid a dime of child support, and never ever saw her again. She's in her 30s now. She wants absolutely nothing to do with him, and he can't figure out why she doesn't want anything to do with him. He was never there for any of us. We were just an inconvenience to him. So therefore, you abuse inconveniences. He verbally abused us, mentally abused us, emotionally abused us, physically abused us. But he has no remorse for his abuse. What brought all this up for me was about 2.5 years ago, I had a stroke. It was a very mild stroke. Thank goodness. I have suffered no physical damage or brain damage from it, but it destroyed my entire life. I lost everything I owned. I couldn't work. For quite some time, I couldn't work. I had been a fairly successful floral designer in a large company. I made decent money. I had 3 children. I was married. I was married twice. Both times it failed. I'm sure it had a lot to do with my abuse issues because, of course, ultimately I was abused in those relationships. My children were abused in those relationships. I got them out before they got hurt. So I've raised my children most of my life by myself. I always had a really good job and made decent money. We were not rich by any means. We couldn't afford the biggest, best house in town. We couldn't afford the newest vehicle or the latest thing for the kids, but we had a decent life. My children were very active in dance and soccer and football and taekwondo. They were able to do things that a lot of other kids were not able to do, which is almost impossible as a single parent. But the day of my stroke, my entire life changed. I couldn't find work. I couldn't get a job. I had to heal from my stroke. I couldn't work for a while. So my brilliant idea was to crowdfund and ask my family for help. My family did not help me. They did not support me. They told me I was crazy. I was insane. My own children tried to put me in a mental institution because they told me asking for help was crazy and insane. My father, the abuser that he is, took that opportunity while I was healing from a very serious medical crisis to take the opportunity to abuse me further. This man, who'd never done anything for me my entire life, decided to come to my home every single day for at least 2 hours every single day. I hadn't had anything to do with my father's family for years and years and years because I wanted to keep my own children and my family away from abusers, people I knew were abusers, people who had abused me, and I was not going to give them the opportunity or put my children in a situation where they would be abused as well. So I just stayed away from these people. So my father took this opportunity after my stroke while I was weak and couldn't do anything or go anywhere. I wasn't allowed to drive. I didn't have a job. I couldn't go anywhere. He took this opportunity to come to my home every single day for 2 hours a day. 7 a.m. he'd show up at my house. He would come to my home and he would tell me I was insane, I was crazy, I was a bitch. His family hated me because I always thought I was better than everyone else, or because I was a bitch. I was never a bitch, nor did I think I was better than any of these people. Well, I did realize I was better than them because I wasn't a drug addict. I didn't live my entire life on welfare. I worked for everything I had. I had bought my own home as a single parent. I had a decent vehicle. I had a decent job. I had insurance. I had everything that I needed, and I took very well care of my children. So I guess to them, people who've lived on welfare their whole lives and never had anything, I guess that would be stuck up or thinking I'm better than them. I never thought I was better than anyone. My mother raised me not to ever believe that we were better than anyone. I did, however, have a different lifestyle than they did. My life did not revolve around drugs and avoiding child support and degrading people and abusing people. My world did not revolve around that. But my father would come to my home every single day and tell me he didn't know how he could love me or he didn't know how to love me. In reality, the man never loved any of his kids, ever. I don't know how you can have a child of your own and not love them, but he didn't. We were an inconvenience to him. He would not provide for us. He would buy his own toys, guns, boats, cars, whatever made him happy, and we were neglected. My mother had to shuffle and rearrange and work a job or two sometimes to take care of us, to make sure that we had food and clothes and a home, because my father never provided for us. He was too busy dealing drugs and playing with his toys to care about his own children. I would never put my children through that. I made up my mind when I decided I wanted to have children that I would never treat them that way or put them through that kind of hell. Unfortunately for me, I ended up with men who were like my father. So my two oldest daughters who belonged to my husband from my first marriage were verbally abused. We were verbally abused. He treated me like a prisoner in my own home. Second marriage, my son's father, physically abusive. Physically abusive to me and my children. That lasted 3.5 years, 6 years. We got out. I took my children and I left. Ever since then, I have raised my children on my own. A weak person does not raise their children by themselves. I did not use welfare. I did not use the government system. I used my job and the child support that my husband's paid to take care of my own family. I did have a home. We did have a nice vehicle. My children had nice clothes, food, good food. I cooked for them every day. I took care of them. Our home was clean and we were happy and they did activities and it was a normal everyday life. Until I got sick. Until I had the stroke. Then I lost everything. At this point in my life, I had to start completely over. I do have a job in the field that I was trained for. And I love my job. I've always loved my job. I was always lucky enough to have a job where I loved it. And I was good at it. And I was pretty successful. Asking my family for help was a disaster. I was called a worthless, a fucking welfare bitch. I was called a mooch. Told to get off my lazy ass and get a job. Told to take care of myself, which I've done since I was 18 years old. I've always had a job. I had a job since I was 15. I've never asked anyone for help ever. I never had government assistance. I never asked my family for help. I never asked anyone for help. I took care of everything myself. Then I got turned on. They turned on me. They were horrible to me. They called me names. They told me I was this person or that person. And I know that I've had issues my entire life. I just learned how to put them aside. Yes, I was an abused child. I wanted to be normal. I just wanted to live a normal life. So I put everything aside. I developed my own ways of dealing with my emotional abuse. But this issue of childhood rape and child sexual abuse is a huge problem, even in the United States. All you ever hear about is people in South Africa or India or Iraq or in the Middle East. These children who are raped and murdered, and it's a problem here in the United States as well. 1 out of 6 children is either sexually molested or raped as a child. The highest percentage in the age range of children who are raped or molested are 7 to 12. I was 7. Parents need to talk to their children about this. It's not strangers who do these things. On a very rare occasion, it's a stranger. It's not strangers who normally pick a child for rape or molestation. It is someone you know. It's someone the family knows. It's either a family friend or a relative. In my case, it was 2 relatives. People don't think this is a problem or you should get over it. It's something you will never get over. Rape is traumatizing. Molestation is traumatizing. I still suffer from PTSD. Since my stroke, it's come up even worse. I have nightmares, night terrors. Sometimes I can't function. I have days where I stay in bed all day, or I don't get dressed, or I won't leave the house. usually on my days off from my work, because I do get lost in my work because I love my work and I love my job. And I've always had a tendency to throw myself into my job because I loved my job. And it was quiet and I was creative and I could just lose myself. So I've always had a tendency to do that, and I still do that. But on the days where I don't have a job to go to, or the days when I'm off, I have issues. People think I'm harsh. They think I'm mean. I'm not mean by any means. I would never hurt someone else. I do have issues, but people don't understand what those issues are because they haven't been in my shoes. They haven't been through what I've been through. It's really easy to judge someone when you don't know anything about them. But over the years, I've also learned that people don't want to know anything about you. They're so superficial, all they care about is themselves. And as long as it didn't happen to me, then I don't need to know about it. I have found one person in my life who loves me unconditionally, and he is the one and only person I ever told my childhood stories to. He's the only person who ever knew I was raped as a child. He's the only person I ever trusted fully and enough to tell this to. Victims don't tell people. They don't want to be judged. They don't want to be accused. They don't want to be blamed. And this all happens. It's your fault this happened to you. You're damaged goods. It's your fault. This all goes with your recovery process. You have to get rid of these feelings of it's your fault. It's your fault. You have to get rid of these feelings of it's your fault. You caused it. You're damaged. I am not damaged. I am a very good person, worthy of anyone's love. I'm worthy of love. I'm worthy of care. I'm worthy of just the same things you're worthy of. I'm worthy of every bit of it. I deserve it. I'm not a bad person because I was raped as a child. I'm not selfish. I'm not evil. I learned to have a bold personality because that was how I covered my pain. I've been called brash, brazen, mouthy. I can be a little mouthy, I will admit that. But my bold personality, I just didn't want to be hurt. So I did things and said things that would not make me a victim. I do have a tendency to tell things like they are. People don't like that. I understand. But I had to find my own truth. This is my truth. This is who I am. And at this point in my life, I don't care if someone doesn't like it. I deserve to be who I am. I didn't cause this and I didn't ask for it. But I have to take care of it. I have to take care of myself. And I had to come forward for my own peace of mind. I made this video because I want people to know that just because you raped as a child doesn't mean you're worthless. You can do great things. Don't let it stop you. I've raised 3 wonderful children and I have a grandchild who I love dearly. Being raped did not stop me from being able to love somebody. I love Jeff with all my heart. He's the only person I ever trusted enough to help me or to tell these things to. And I deserve it. I deserve to have someone love me and not judge me for what happened to me. The rest of the world needs to take note and be the same way. You can't judge someone for what happened to them. You can't go around intentionally hurting people you know are already hurting or in pain. It's not right to do these things to someone. It's not right to consider them damaged goods because they were raped as a child. I'm not damaged. I am damaged emotionally and mentally because of the things that did happen to me, but I'm not damaged as a human being. I deserve love just like everyone else. I deserve to have a family just like everyone else. I raise my children very well. They're very compassionate, caring, loving children. They will be successful in their own rights. My grandson's beautiful and I love him. But I had a lot of things to come to terms with after my stroke. Things that came up that I had thought that would go away. This is part of my healing process. I just want people to understand that this happens, and it happens more than you think. Someone listening to this video or watching this video has probably had it happen to them. Some of my friends have probably had it happen to them, but no one talks about it. We need to bring awareness to this very horrible problem. We need to save these children from the stigmatism of being a child, being abused as a child. It doesn't make you insane. It doesn't make you dysfunctional. It doesn't make you a victim. It doesn't make you a drug addict. It doesn't make you an alcoholic. I never medicated myself with drugs or alcohol. I just learned to push things aside. I threw myself into my work, into my family, into raising my family, having my home. I worked at my church. I worked in the community. I replaced my pain with other things. You don't have to be a drug addict. You don't have to be an alcoholic. You can do some kind of healing without medicating yourself. I didn't do that. I medicated myself with my family and my desire to be a better person. And I am a good person. And I am worthy of being loved. And I'm not damaged goods. No matter what someone thinks. I'm sure that people will see this or listen to this and say, oh God, she's so damaged, it's crazy. If that was me, I'd be insane. I'm not insane. I'm not crazy because I was asking for help after a huge medical crisis. I'm not crazy. I just am a victim of what other people have done to me. I know it's not my fault. I didn't ask to be raped at 7 years old. How can a 7-year-old say, hey, come rape me? I don't understand how people can blame a 7-year-old child for being raped. I don't understand how someone cannot believe you when you tell them that. To this day, my father does not believe that his brother did this to me. He threatened to beat me to death for telling him the truth about his family. Because he didn't want to hear it. Because nobody wants to believe that this can happen. Nobody wants to believe that their family member or their friend would ever do this. Oh, they're an upstanding citizen. They do this, they do that. That does not make them not an abuser. In my case, this person has never done anything except be a worthless deadbeat. But it's still not possible for him to be a child rapist or a child molester. 2 of his brothers in that 7 kids, 5 kids out of 7 are mentally unstable. They're either drug addicts, they're child abusers, they're child molesters, they're child rapists. One of them is a murderer. He murdered his wife with his drug use. He murdered his own wife. These people need to be punished. They should not be in our communities. They should not be around our children. They should not be around people. They're abusive. They're hateful. They're nasty. No one wants to admit they've done anything wrong. They'll never take responsibility for anything they've ever done. Well, she made me do it. Or he made me do it. And it's not just a female thing. Young boys are raped every single day. These people prey on children. It doesn't matter what the sex is. They prey on children. They take an innocent child and they prey on them for their own power trip or whatever it is that they get out of raping little children. I don't know what their mental state is. All I know is it happened to me, and this person does not feel bad. He doesn't feel sorry. My own father doesn't care he told me to get over it. He told me he'd beat me to death if I said anything bad about his family. This is how people cover for abusers. Instead of abusing the person who abused me, he abused me further. I'm not insane. I'm not lying. This happened to me. And I'm really, quite frankly, tired of being called a liar and being accused of fabricating my story. It's not a fabrication. It happened. We need to be aware of this. My goal with this video is to raise money, raise awareness, and stop these things from happening in our country. We have a country where we have a legal system that's put in place to stop people like this. We need to do more to stop it. We can't let children be destroyed by these things. It's destroying our society. It's destroying our children's lives. It has to stop. My goal is to raise enough money to open a place where children of rape can come and tell their story and not be judged, not be told it's their fault. Not be blamed. It's not their fault. It's not their fault. They shouldn't be blamed. They had nothing to do with the person. They had nothing to do with the reason the person who raped them raped them. It's a horrible, heinous mental crime. It's a crime. It's okay. They'll arrest people for smacking their child in the mouth, but they won't arrest a child sexual offender? Or they allow sexual offenders to go free and offend again? Something has to be done about this. This man has offended several times. I know other women in my family who have been abused by this man and by his other brother, who's a sexual offender as well. But no one has come forward. They don't have to come forward. I'm doing it. This is me. I'm coming forward. I would never tell anyone who they are, because it's up to them to come forward and heal. This is part of my healing process. I need to heal from this. If they don't want to heal, that's their business. I would never put them in a position to explain themselves. I should not have to explain myself, but here I am explaining myself. I've had people over the years tell me I was crazy, I was insane. I have none of those things. But do I protect myself and my children? Yes, I do. That does not make me insane. That makes me not want to be a victim or not make anyone else a victim. So I'll end this video here, but I want to make people aware. The awareness needs to be, I want people to share this. I want people to view it. I want people to share it with their friends. This problem needs to stop. It's a huge problem in the United States. 1 in 6 children are raped or molested every single day. That means out of every 6 of you, at least one of you, your friends, your family, at least one of you has been raped or molested. That's a huge sum of children in this country being raped or molested. It has to stop. It has to be it needs to be very punishable. These people need to be punished for what they've done. There should be no statute of limitations on when you can come forward for an abuser, because a lot of people do not admit it, or they won't come forward for years and years and years. There should be no statute of limitations on it. You should be able to sue your abuser. You should be able to have your abuser arrested. Doesn't matter how old or how long ago it was. You should be able to make your abuser accountable for their actions. Unfortunately, there are very few women who abuse children. It's mostly men. And I think that has a lot to do with this men in power thing. In our country, men still think that they should be in power over everything and every woman. I've met men who think that they are the king of the world, and you should do what they say and do what they want so that they can feel powerful. Women need to rise up and be their own powerful force. It's not all about men. It's not a men's world. You need to make it a woman's world. You need to make it your world. Do something great. Do something that will make a difference. And I hope this makes a difference. If it only makes a difference in one person's life, I hope it helps. Because maybe my life would have been different had I had this kind of help. And it wouldn't have taken me so long to come forward. I just hope that this helps someone. But I'd like it to help a lot of people. I would like this video to help hundreds of people. I would like to be able to provide a place for these victims to go and not be judged and be able to tell their stories without being judged, without being blamed, without being crucified. In our society, it seems a victim is crucified for being a victim. And it's not right. I don't live my entire life as a victim. I take responsibility for my own actions. But what happened to me was not my fault. And I am a victim of child rape and abuse. I didn't ask for it. This just happens to be my life. I take responsibility for my own actions and my behavior, not someone else's. I will never take the fault or the blame for what one person did to me. Or what several people did to me. I will not take the blame for that. I will take responsibility for myself and my own actions. But all I can do is be a better person than the people who abused me. That's all I can do. I hope this makes me a better person. I hope it helps someone. I hope it helps a lot of people. I would love to see this go viral and get some help with opening a place for people to go, victims to go. I would love to be able to have all that help. I would love for victims to come forward and help with this. That would be my greatest wish. I'm rebuilding my life. That was completely destroyed. I would like to have help with that. So my final wish, and the wish I have for this video, is to help a lot of people. For this to go viral, for people to share it, people to actually listen to it and view it. I want you to view it. I want you to understand what kind of person I am. I'm not crazy or insane. I'm just wanting to help someone else. I want to help another victim. I want to help a lot of other victims. Thank you for watching. If you're a victim, please come forward.